Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're here. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. With that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time. All right, thank y'all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hey, Kyler Fischer, Fortune Ave Studio, and the newly rebranded Fortune Ave Sapphire Records.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do, give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Yeah, so I'm Kyler Fischer. I'm from California originally, grew up right outside of Yosemite.
Oh, okay.
And I've been doing music for a really long time. Played in punk bands when I was a kid and teenager. Went to school for music. I studied guitar and classical Arabic music.
Oh, gotcha.
A few oud players in the city, and just released an album of classical Arabic music.
Wait, you mean there aren't a oodle of them?
No, there are not an oodle of oud.
Sorry, I get one dumb joke a week. That was it.
Then, so I've been interested in recording and doing audio engineering for a very long time. I've always recorded all my own bands and started recording other people's music even when I was a teenager. So it's kind of slowly over the years, I've gotten more and more and more audio gear, as I'm sure you can relate to.
I understand that fully.
Eventually you just have too much stuff and it all makes a really cool studio.
Yeah, I was going to say, then you're just like, I'll let other people pay me to use it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then what was the start for you? What was the beginning of music like?
The start was actually at a really young age. My dad's a musician.
Okay, so it's generational.
Yes. I have a Tascam 388 8-track quarter-inch reel-to-reel tape machine, and that was my dad's tape machine. So some of my earliest memories are messing with the knobs and faders on that specific machine that I run quite often.
Hell yeah, I dig that.
So
generational equipment.
Yeah. And so I started playing piano when I was really young and just kind of kept going. Picked up the trumpet, picked up the guitar, started writing my own songs when I was a teenager. And I thought, hey, these are kind of cool. I should figure out how to record them myself. And the first unit I worked on, I actually still have. It's this 16-track digital Fostex recorder that you mix down the song in real time to stereo. There's 2 layers of faders. And then it bounces it to a stereo left, right, channel 1, 2, and then you burn that to a CD, and then the CD pops out of the unit. It was really cool. Cool device for early 2000s.
I was gonna say, yeah, that actually is some pretty capable stuff to have your hands on at early times like that.
So that kind of taught me how to mix in real time, and shortly after that, started working in DAWs, and I mostly run Logic. So I've been running.
We're going to edit that to say Ableton. No, I'm kidding.
I've been using that since 2006.
Gotcha.
Maybe. So I'm pretty Logic efficient.
I usually ask this question way later in the interview, but we'll just tackle it here. I started on Logic 8. Yeah. And to this day, I still think that's one of the most capable editing instances of a software anywhere.
when I finally could not use Logic 8 anymore because of too many bugs and had to jump to 10, I was very upset.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or sorry, I jumped to 9 eventually because that was a stone's throw. But same thing. When it came time to go to X, I was just like, I can't.
But they continually release new features that are really cool.
Now I kick myself for jumping over to Ableton. Even though I love Ableton, I wouldn't move back for the world. Big fan. Love it so much. But at the time, I just couldn't see through like the disdain for the change of the program. And mine, I had to make the change because my computer crashed and I couldn't re-update to 10.6.8. I had to go up to the higher OSs because that was the only thing I could get from the website. I didn't realize how far back they kept stuff. So I had to update it, and Ableton I got through work at the time, so I went with that.
Nice.
Yeah. But Logic now is really cool, and one day I do want to make the jump back to it.
It's a pretty good DAW.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll do recordings without a computer and just do it all straight to my tape machines.
See, there's something special when you don't have that anywhere in the process. Like when you are just kind of going to something where you're like, what you put in, that's what happens.
And that's the cool thing about tape is it's a commitment. If you really like your vocal take, but you think you can do it better, you're committing to getting rid of that vocal take to do another one. See, that's why I like doing the live music. Because even though, I record not to tape, I record to a digital platform. It's still only one instance. What you do in that one moment, that's it. So, I mean, you may do something you've never done before. You may nail something you've done 1,000 times, or like not nail something you've done 1,000 times. But that is the instance, and whatever goes into it is all I have to work with. Totally.
So like the limitation of that forces you to kind of have to make other creative choices at a different point. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. And I have a couple foundation questions I like to check in with everybody on early on. And this first one is one we ask early. It's one we ask often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
Ooh, this is kind of embarrassing.
Honestly, these are always the best.
I was in second grade. Okay. So I was a little kid.
Spice World?
No, it was the Hanson Bros.
Whoa.
Which is a great album.
Okay,
it's a
hold
great
on.
album. Okay. I was in second grade.
Hold on.
The Bop album.
That is 2 for 2 on Hanson answers to that question today.
Oh, nice.
And those are the 2 times I've ever gotten Hanson as the answer.
Wow.
That is a running bit on this show. And anybody can go and fact check this. Hundreds of episodes. Hanson is always the call out answer.
Great.
What a world.
At least I'm not alone.
That is amazing.
I was a little embarrassed to say it, but
what made you pick that?
The Bop song.
Okay.
It was a banger in the second grade.
I mean, it's a banger now.
It is.
I don't care what anybody says. That is a quality jam.
But yeah, I listened to that album all the time.
Hell yeah.
At that point in my life, my parents were building a house on our property. So I was living in a trailer, and that was my main source of entertainment was my little Discman CD player. Just listen to it all the time.
Oh yeah, that is amazing. Do you still have that CD?
No, I do not.
Darn it.
That CD.
And then what was one of the first live shows you ever went to that was specifically one you wanted to go to? So like you saw what was happening, you got the ticket, you went to it.
I was also still pretty young, but there was this really cool ska band back in the day called the OC Supertones, and I was really into them. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I had been playing trumpet at that point. And so
you're really into them.
I was like, I want to see this band. Believe my mom took me to that show. But that was like the first one that I was like, I really want to see this band. I remember both my parents are pretty into music, so I remember going to concerts from
an early age,
little baby, early ages. But yeah, that was the first one that I really wanted to go see.
Gotcha.
So,
and then when did you inevitably move out here? Because you said were you from California originally?
Yeah, from California. I grew up there. Went to school in San Luis Obispo. spent a little time in LA, and then I moved out here in 2016.
Oh, yeah, that's when I moved here too.
So I've been here for 8 years, almost 9 years now.
Gotcha. And what made you want to move to here?
To be straight up, I didn't really like LA because being from Yosemite,
Yeah,
with lots of nature,
very rural.
Yeah, pretty rural. I wanted to live in a city, but also have that beautiful nature element to it. So Portland seemed like a cool spot, and yeah, I just kind of went with it.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite things about up here is that, like, for instance, literally 4 minutes away from me, like where we are right this moment, there's this awesome walking path that just cuts through this forest in the middle that, like, all these properties just kept. Like, they always try to keep nature just in little pockets everywhere, and then you drive an hour that way and you're in the forest.
Yeah, same at my house. I can just walk up the road and I'm in this forested park.
Yeah.
So it's pretty great.
And were you pretty established with music when you moved up to here? Like had you been doing a lot down where you were, or were you kind of like in between at the time?
Yeah, I was in San Luis Obispo. I was the front man of a 9-piece funk band.
Okay.
And we just put out a full-length album.
What was the band called?
The band was called Chunk.
Oh, okay.
I still have CDs if you want. $10, $5, whatever, free. So it was it, and I was working at a recording studio down there that a bunch of my friends and I kind of collabed on building and bringing all of our gear to. And I was also gigging a lot, doing solo gigs. So when that band kind of fizzled, because it was a post-college band, everyone kind of had their own
they graduated, wanted to do things,
you know, so they wanted to go get real jobs.
Boo.
Boo. So that was that. At that point, I was living in LA, and we were still trying to keep the band going with a few of the core members. And then that kind of wasn't working out because LA is a really big city, and we were living on different sides of the city.
Yeah.
So we'd have to go and meet up at some rehearsal studio, and and then it was kind of like, I don't want to be in the city, and I'm just gonna move to Portland and figure it out. And
okay, I dig that.
So,
and what did it look like when you got here? Like, how long did it take you to get settled? How did you first plant your music roots?
Yeah, I moved my whole studio up here. The first spot I was in, I was just renting a room month to month, and then moved to a basement and kind of had a mini home studio set up there, and then moved to the house I lived in for the longest time, which was on Fortune Ave. So that's what
that's where the name comes
from. And slowly over a handful of years, just really built that space up, and recorded a bunch of bands there, did a lot of really cool projects there. And so that's kind of how I got it going.
Oh yeah, I dig that. And then before we get into more of the now, do you have a defining moment where you decided you wanted to take music more seriously?
Yeah. So it was actually, I was working a lot of kind of day jobs here and there in Portland, restaurant jobs, gig economy jobs and stuff. And in 2019, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer.
Oh no.
And, kind of put the brakes on everything.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was building my recording studio. And as I was going after the surgeries and during the treatments, the energy that I put into building up the studio space.
Yeah.
And I opened the studio space and was recording people while I was getting chemo.
Yeah.
And it was just, I knew no more of the BS. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And, about a year after I was diagnosed, my cancer went into remission. and it's been in remission ever since. And I got the opportunity to record a lot of cool bands out of that space and do some really cool work. And a lot of one of my long-term clients that I had, he kind of started recording there kind of right at the beginning, and it was, there were some moments where it's like, hey man, I got to cancel the session today. I feel like crap.
Yeah.
But it just really kept the drive going. And then, once I got out of treatments and the cancer went into remission, I just kind of hit it full speed and I haven't stopped.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that happened, but it sounds like, you got through it.
Yeah.
And you've done something beautiful with it.
Totally.
Oh yeah. Well, let's go ahead then. Let's get on into more of the present day.
Sure.
Now, usually this is where I ask, how'd you pick the name? But it sounds like we already found that one out.
Oh yeah.
So let's get into, let's get a little bit of the technical stuff out of the way. We already found out you use Logic. But what are some of the primary pieces in your studio? So what interface are you using, what monitors, get the general gear.
So the interfaces I'm using are the Focusrite, Scarlett, and then I got the Claret Pre. So I can do 16 digital ins. And then I kind of like to call it a hybrid setup because I'm doing a lot of analog recording and digital. There's a lot of analog and digital crossover. For instance, I can track 8 tracks down to my 1/4-inch tape machine, but then I can digitize that and mix and master it digitally. On the other end of that, I can take digital tracks and then send them to my stereo tape machines and add that nice saturation and compression that the tape machines add to music. So people will send me their digital files and I can, I'm not trying to gatekeep how I to master stuff, but my mastering process is I take the stereo files and I basically just run outboard parallel bus through my tape preamps. Sometimes, depending on the music, I've found some music sounds better when printed to the tape. Some music sounds worse when printed to the tape.
Yeah, because tape definitely has its own characteristics.
Yeah, so I'll kind of decide whether or not it sounds better or worse, and then I'll send that through. I have this really cool vintage Russian compressor. It's kind of rare. It's called the LC1. I call it the rad compressor because instead of reduction, it says raduction on it. So there's a
funny
German typo on it. It was primarily used in radio broadcasting because it also has a limiter and a de-esser on it. But I've found that adding that into my mastering chain just kind of makes everything sound really good.
Gotcha.
So I just run the stereos through my tape machine, and I have 2 stereo tape machines. One is a Tascam 32, the other one's a Akai GX 625. So I'll pick what preamps are going to sound better, and usually just hearing the track I can know at this point that's going to sound better on the Tascam 32 or the Akai, and then I'll send them through the tape machine preamps, either push it to tape or not, put it through my compressor, and then redigitize it. So
a lot of options.
Yeah. So there's a handful of variables and stuff, but because I'm taking the left and right signal and putting it onto a left and right bus, I can then also add a really wide spreader.
True.
So basically what it's taking the track and it's pushing it out in the left and right field, but then also pushing it out in low and high end.
Yeah.
So it kind of is just expanding the track this way and this way. And then if it goes to the tape, adding some saturation and color.
Man, There's so many possibilities with that.
Yeah.
Now, as I imagine, it's kind of your thing to have those options available. Does anybody ever come to you and go, hey, I just like the way you record things. Can we do it with like no tape, no extra stuff? Just like, I like the way you capture in your space.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I'll do a lot of digital recordings too.
Mm-hmm.
I have a pretty good microphone.
Mm-hmm. I was looking at your mic locker on your website.
Yeah. So I really value the sound of vintage microphones.
Mm-hmm.
They all have their own different color and timbre to them, and also depending on whether or not the microphone was kept up by all of the previous owners in a nice spot, that can also make it sound cool.
Yeah, very much so. Well, then there was this, like, the making of things was so much more like hands-on at the time.
Totally.
So there were these like interesting inconsistencies just in small moments along the production that like machines just don't make.
Totally.
So you never knew when you were going to get something that had this like character to it that you're like, no other one sounds like this, but this sounds like perfect for me.
And I'll use a lot of my vintage microphones on like guitar cabinets, bass cabinets, drums, and you know, it just gives them a nice color.
Yeah.
Especially sending everything through like the preamps on my 8-track tape machine. A lot of the time, that's how I personally record drums for clients, is because I'm a drummer also.
Oh, so gotcha. Okay.
I'll send all my signal through my 8-track tape machine, but then straight to digital after that.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, it's nice to be able to kind of have it exist in both worlds.
Yeah.
And it feels like you can kind of interject it into anywhere even after that.
Totally.
Because I saw that you had a handful of the TT's patch bays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I imagine those are all kind of linked to where you can just kind of run it at any point.
Yeah. So everything in my studio is hardwired to. I have 2 Switchcraft patch bays, which are great because you can do full normal, half normal.
Yeah.
There's just a little dip.
Yeah, they have it up on the front instead of like taking it, so you have to pull the thing out, flip it over.
It's so great. Yeah. You know, so it's everything's going to my patch bays. So the options are limitless.
Yeah.
Basically, I've got a handful of 500 series preamps and compressors, some of my friends built for me.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about some new gear that I just got from the studio.
Please.
This year I picked up a 16-track reel-to-reel.
Whoa, okay.
1-inch tape.
Yeah.
I haven't recorded to it yet, but I'm finally getting it fully set up to be able to record onto it. And just yesterday, I drove up to Seattle to pick up what's called the Tascam M308B. And it's the same 8-channel mixer that's on the Tascam 388. So I can use the IOs from both the 388 mixer and that mixer to get my 16 channels running to the Tascam M16.
Damn.
I really like Tascam.
I can tell, yeah. I was always more of an Otari guy personally. But
yeah.
They're a little harder to come by, which is really annoying.
And they're pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to hear the quality of the 1-inch tape because most people know what 1/4-inch tape sounds like. Let me rephrase that. Most people that are recording to tape know what 1/4-inch tape sounds like. People that are recording to 2-inch tape knows that it sounds really, really good, but it's really, really expensive.
Yeah.
It's like $8 an audio minute to record to 2-inch tape. 1-inch tape is a little more affordable and it's easy to get through ATR Magnetics.
Yep.
They're making tape. And the Tascam M16 is a 15 IPS machine. So it spins at 15 inches per second. So a little bit faster than the machines that I currently have. So
man, that is going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's a good hi-fi machine. I picked it up down in San Jose. I drove all the way down there to grab it.
Oh, cool. Hey, that's not too far from where I used to live.
Yeah.
So But that's exciting, man. Actually, if there's a way we can coordinate it in the future, I'd love to do like an episode where we like show off kind of the experience of a like tape machine. I think that'd be an interesting one to get into.
I love tape machines. They're hard to work with when they're not working.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to understand a lot of things for the insides of them.
So calibrating them, my Akai tape machine, I'll tell a little story about that one. Mm-hmm. That one came from my friend Max, who's my piano technician. Mm-hmm. His teacher was clearing out a bunch of his storage. And so Max saw there were 5 or 6 quarter-inch tape machines, along with a bunch of tape that was like really bad. But he knew me as the quarter-inch guy.
Yep.
So he gave me a call, and I canceled my studio session that day, drove out to somewhere near the coast, and then he was like, okay, you can have, do you want these? I'm like, yeah. Like, he told me there was an Akai machine, but I didn't see it. I just talked to him on the phone and then went out there. And then I was like, yeah, I kind of really only want that one. And then, it's like, okay, the deals, you got to take all of them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And all of the tape is, 50, 60 boxes of quarter-inch tape.
Oof.
Probably what was cool about it, and it's a shame that it was all just wrecked.
Yeah.
A lot of it was like local Pacific Northwest bands that had been recorded from back in the day, but the tape was all degraded and falling apart.
Yeah.
So I couldn't digitize.
Yeah, no way to restore that.
So it could have been a cool catalog, but there was no way to restore it. So I ended up kind of trashing everything except for the Akai machine, and it was super dirty. So I spent like 3 months taking the thing apart and detail cleaning it. There was a spider living inside of it.
Oh no.
Bunch of dead bugs. And so, I really detail cleaned it before I even plugged it in. And now I use that machine all the time.
Man, well, that's cool. That's yeah. You never know when you're going to find the thing that makes its way into your heart like that.
Yeah.
Now for everybody who does like production and things in the realm of like recording and things like that, I always ask this question, but if you could, or actually, no, I guess I am more curious to know that first, what are some of your like frequently used microphones? So like you've got a large amount of them, but like what is like on a day-to-day, what's one that you're going to go to pretty regularly?
First one I grab for almost everything is this company. They're not a company anymore, but you can still get their microphones, Cascade Fatheads. They're ribbon mics, and I have a stereo pair of those, and I have the newer ones with the Lindell transformers in them, but they just sound so good on vocals. I use them for drum overheads a lot. I really love those microphones. I believe the owner of that company passed a few years back, and the mic, they rebranded them. So they're still making that ribbon microphone, but they're, I'm blanking on the new name. They're just making them under a new name.
Oh, gosh.
I love my Fathead mics. They sound so good. Yeah, that's the one I like.
Oh yeah, I dig that. I dig that. And then as a big part of your thing is also, making records, like you actually can kind of cut them and do it all yourself. Can you take us through like what got you started into that part of it?
Yeah, definitely. So when I was running the studio space, I really had this drive to make physical media. And I was making, and I've always done that in every band I've ever been in, especially being in the punk rock scene as a kid. We were hand making our CDs, our buttons. There was a lot of like the DIY element of it. So there were a handful of artists that I was working with regularly, and I just wanted to create something physical that they could sell to their fans. So I started making CDs on a small scale. I had this like 50 CD duplicator. Just drop the master in the top.
Yep.
Spits out 50 of them. And then I actually had this pretty cool CD printer.
Oh, yep.
Grab one of the discs, throw it in a printing tray.
Yeah, and then have a little
image on it.
Oh, okay.
And then drop it into the drying tray.
Yeah.
So we were making, I'd make like 100 at a time or so. And then I was printing cassettes too. And then I kind of just went down this rabbit hole of there's got to be a way where I can make my own records, because when you go to get your music on a record, it's pretty expensive. You got to order at most pressing plants 100 at a time.
Yeah.
And so I just did some research online, and I heard of these record lathes that a handful of people are cutting records on. And so I kind of dove a little deeper in that. And then I found the guy, my teacher, his name's Mike Dixon. He's super cool guy. He finds all these old machines and refurbishes them and rebuilds them. He makes Franken lathes is what he calls them, which was my first record lathe is the Franken lathe. It's got the body of a Reco cut. It's got the arm of a Presto. No, the arm has custom parts built on it too, like machined parts. Some gears on it are 3D printed, and then it's got a Presto cutter head on it. So it's kind of a mini Franken lathe. Yeah. So I was like, this is really cool. I got in touch with him, and I kind of told him, hey, I'm serious, because of
I imagine. Yeah.
A lot of people get in touch with them thinking like, hey, I want to do this, but then don't realize there is a huge learning curve.
Oh yeah.
And I told him like, yeah, I've been working with tape machines for a while now and stuff. And he's like, okay, I think like you should be able to pick this up.
Yeah.
And then I applied for one of the regional arts culture grants and received some grant funding. Put all that towards my first record lathe, which is that smaller Reco cut record lathe. And yeah, when I first started making them, I just hit up a lot of people that I knew that do music, and I kind of just said like, hey, these records are going to be cheap, but they might sound like crap because
you're figuring it out,
learning how to do it. So and eventually I got them to sound pretty good on that little machine. And yesterday, actually, I got to see one of my old buddies that was in that funk band I mentioned earlier. And I brought him a couple 7-inch squares that I made of our old music from a few years back, cut on that old machine, and was like,
oh, cool.
I found him in the move that I just did.
Yeah.
And so I had him on me, and so I gave him one, and we spun one of them on his record player, and I was like, oh, actually, like, this one sounds pretty good. Like, so, but when I was first starting off, like, they did sound very good. They're, as described by Mike, who I mentioned, they're mid-fidelity records.
Yes.
I had a handful of lathe cuts in my collection, but I didn't realize they were lathe cut records, sort of thing. And a lot of people that are making lathe cut records, and this is one reason why Mike Dixon likes to get people to a good level of making them, because if you know the scene at all, some people will say like, no, lathe cut records sound like garbage, but if you do it right, they actually sound comparable to pressed vinyl. All of the machines I'm running, so that first machine, I should say, it cuts in mono, and the process is called sapphire embossing. So we're not, these aren't vinyl records. They're sapphire embossed polycarbonate discs. So we're taking polycarbonate and then applying lighter fluid to the plastic to soften it up with heat. And then the cutter needle is a sapphire stone that's embossing the audio signal into the disc.
Interesting.
So I was working on that machine and making a lot of records on that little record lathe. And then one of my good friends wanted to, he came over to the studio when the machine got installed. He learned how to cut him on that machine. And then he came up on some money and decided to purchase kind of the bigger version of that. The Presto 6N.
Gotcha. Can that do stereo?
It can do stereo, but it's got mono cutter heads on them. But he bought what's called the Grampian cutter head, which is like a higher fidelity cutter head. But yeah, so that was my friend David Rees, and him and I were cutting records together for the last couple years. And then unfortunately he passed from cancer at the end of March. And we were making record batches for people, kind of word of mouth. And he had the same type of cancer I had, which was pretty wild. But also like, it's weird. It's not really weird. I think like we go through these hard times in our lives so that we can help other people. And I'm a really strong believer in that. And it was really great to like kind of be there for my friend and business partner and understand what he was going through. And do this really cool thing together also. But towards the end, when it got really bad, we were kind of just making stuff word of mouth. I wasn't really promoting it or anything. And then after he passed, I bought all of the machines and materials and stuff, and it's all set up in my new studio now. So I got 3 record lathes over there now.
Oh, dang. You can really get into it.
Yeah. So the 2 bigger ones are Presto 6N record lathes with the Grampian cutter heads. Those can be modded to have a stereo cutter head put on it, which I'm working towards. They're pretty expensive.
Yeah, I can imagine.
When you step into the stereo cutting world, you're moving from sapphire to diamond. And so just the needles themselves, the cutter needles are pretty expensive because they're made out of diamond. And then in that realm, instead of embossing the disc, you're removing material. So you have to add a vacuum element to suck up the material that's getting removed from the disc. But I've grown to appreciate what music sounds like summed to mono and mastered for these record lathes and then cut with these record lathes. It gives the music a cool sound, and it's almost like when there's those digital plugins you can add, make it sound like vinyl or whatever. It's like a vinyl plugin.
Yeah.
It's like that, but the outboard version of that.
Yeah.
So the plan with those 2 machines is I want to run live sessions for artists so they can come in and do 2 20-minute sets. And we're gonna video the sets and hopefully run a live broadcast of it on like YouTube or something. While simultaneously the two sets are getting cut to two 12-inch discs on the Presto record lathes. So they do the first set on the one side, I flip them over, and they do their second set on the other side.
Interesting.
And then, they can raffle them off or sell them for a high price or keep them or whatever.
Yeah.
So
that's a really cool experience. Yeah. I'm excited to see that when it gets going.
Yeah.
All right. Now, before we move into the next part, this next question is probably the densest question I have in the interview. But, we talked about your experience with music, the actions, the reactions. But when it's just you and music one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
Oh, I love this question. So, especially with a lot of my solo performance these days is playing my oud, playing Arabic classical music. And recently I've gotten the opportunity to play with my hand drummer, Kaya, at the Arabic Cultural Night at Lincoln High School. And just being able to like perform that music for the people whose music it is just so rewarding. I also play a handful of other places playing the oud. But for me personally, it's really healing, and I know it's helping other people too. And I like to be able to, especially with that instrument, I find it really easy to do. It's really easy to convey how I'm feeling in the moment while I'm playing. And a lot of that, I do a lot of improvisation when I'm playing that instrument. So I'd say it's about like 60-70% of melodies of these folk tunes and like really old music. And then the rest of it, I'm just improvising melodies and rhythms. So yeah, I think I'm excited this year. It's my goal to like kind of work on more of my own compositions and music. I've been playing drums in a handful of local bands for the last handful of years, and that's been really fun and great. But it's all of like the band songs, and then I'm playing drums.
Yeah.
And I like to add my kind of like composer brain to that and come up with cool arrangements, rhythmically. So, but music's always given back to me in ways where when I've needed it, it's been there for me and helped me get through like the most difficult times I've ever gone through. And it's just a really amazing way to freely express your emotions in the moment and how they are.
Yeah.
And get them out into the world, and then they float through the atmosphere and then they disappear.
Yes. Yes. No, they're everything forever.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move on to some hypothetical questions.
Oh, yeah.
And for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well. But this first one is pretty straightforward. If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive.
Oh, okay.
I know, it gets it every time. But yes, they have to be alive. Who would you want to work with, and how would you want to work with them?
Who would I want to work with that's alive? Well, before you said alive, yesterday when I was up in Seattle, I visited the Jimi Hendrix Memorial. So that's the first thing that came to my mind.
That's fair, yeah.
But then you said alive. So, yeah. I think there are a handful of people that are coming to mind kind of right off the bat. the, Tom York's a big influence for me. And like, he's done so much cool music, a large variety of styles and genres. And, even just being able to like pick his brain a little bit would satisfy that itch. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't even necessarily have to record him or anything, but that would be really cool too. But yeah, he would be up there for sure. I'm a big fan of Steve Reich. And I actually performed one of his guitar compositions in college. So kind of that, like, modern minimalism music is really cool. And, kind of incorporating some of the tools at my expense in that genre of modern minimalism, like tape and also maybe records that are cut on the record lathes and stuff. I feel like something really cool could potentially happen. Like,
yeah,
he made all these really cool pieces of music where kind of everybody had the freedom to kind of play whatever motif they wanted to. And each time the music's performed, it's different because it's kind of up to the player's choice. But then, like, when you put all that together, it doesn't sound disorganized and it sounds like really cool, different rhythmic things happen, but the core of the music is still there. So I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, very much so.
Especially because, like, having multiple tape machines that are playing different things, and then maybe having like some of that go to the records, and then once those are done, you're adding another layer by playing them back. So I don't know. I think that would be. I'd probably pick Steve Reich. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then subsequently, who's a local artist that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
Ooh. Well, I mean, you mentioned them earlier before we started recording, but I've always been a big fan of Portugal the Man.
Oh yeah.
They're rad.
Very much so.
Especially doing, I hope that running these kind of like live to record recording sessions kind of branches me into artists that maybe have never done that before.
Yeah.
Whether it be like whatever style of music it is, there's a lot of really cool hip hop music in the city too.
Oh, very much so.
So, having the ability to do that in studio, but also the goal is to be able to do that at other places too.
Yeah.
And I've been working on that right now too with my smaller record lathe. I've been outboarding it so that I can take it out to places and run little live to record recording pop-ups. And it would be so rad to do that at some of these places in town that already do pop-ups like that, like Music Millennium and Mississippi Records, places like that. Because in my mind, it's like capturing this moment of a musical performance onto a medium that's going to outlast you and I.
Yeah.
Plastic's here forever, unfortunately.
Yep. And inside a lot of us, apparently. Yeah.
So.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I dig that. Now, for this next one, we're going outward. We're reaching wide on this.
Yeah.
But if you could work in any studio, anyone in the world, they would just let you walk in.
Electric Lady.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I kind of had a feeling.
And what's really funny about that is the first time I went to New York City, I went there with the Cal Poly Arab Music Ensemble to perform at Carnegie Hall. And our director he is like a music historian, and he wrote the New Grove music articles. It's like a big encyclopedia of all things music for like Bob Dylan, all these like really a lot of American pop music from the 60s. Like he wrote the articles for that.
Yeah.
And so when we were there, he's like, I gotta go see Electric Lady Studio. So we went to the studio and knocked on the door,
Yeah.
and he's like, hey, I'm a professor, Cal Poly, I wrote all these articles about like artists that have been here and blah, 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 blah. And they basically said, go away, which was kind of funny, but yeah, that studio is so cool.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's definitely a solid choice.
Yeah.
And then to wrap up the hypothetical questions, if you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, they could have put out an album yesterday. Who would you want an album from?
Well, and it's probably just fresh on my mind because I went and saw the Jimi Hendrix Memorial yesterday.
Gotcha.
And was thinking like, man, he left this planet so young and put out so much work, so much really, really great work, and recorded so much that they're still releasing Jimi Hendrix stuff.
Yeah.
And like I would have loved to hear one of his more mature albums.
Yeah.
Because it kind of just stopped when he was 27 and partying all the time and shredding on the guitar and experimenting with a lot of drugs and stuff. It just halted right there.
Yeah.
But like,
what would it be like now? Like if he had the time to like grow out all of that, come up with like a deeper style, spend time with some of the other greatest guitarists in the world. Like, yeah. So
probably that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely a super solid answer.
Yeah.
All right. But with that being said, we are going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. Is there anything we can look forward to in say the next 6 months?
Yeah. So I brought a couple things here just to kind of show off. Here's like, some of the records that I made. This is one of my longtime friends, and
I can hold it in my camera if you want to talk about it while I'm holding it here.
Yeah. So go ahead and pull the record out of that too. So I've recorded Jeremy Fama for a long time, and we've made a handful of records together. So these are kind of what the records look like.
Oh, there's a picture in here.
Insert in there too. But if you
picture down real quick,
yeah.
Oh, with much to say on the back, I won't read it out loud now.
So
there's a small origami bird.
Oh, that was custom. That doesn't come with the other records. If you buy one of these, it doesn't come with the origami bird.
Gotcha. Okay, that's one of one. All right, and then
pull the record out.
Record itself.
So all those labels are hand drawn.
Oh.
This one was cut on clear polycarbonate.
Wow.
But we also cut on black or white polycarbonate.
Interesting.
And one thing I'll just mention real quick, because of the clear polycarbonate, I've made picture discs for people.
Oh,
the trick, there's no hiding it. The trick for that is I just put two pieces of clear polycarbonate together.
Yeah, with a picture in the middle. Interesting.
So in the next handful of months, with the portable record lathe, we're going to be making records like this at different locations.
Gotcha.
And, I want artists. I want to do it a couple different ways. Bring out the unit, show people this is how they made records. This is how they recorded music before tape.
Yeah. Let everybody kind of experience it that way.
This is how the first records were made. Were all cut in real time using tungsten to acetate. And set up that unit so that someone can show up, bring their guitar, kind of open mic style, play one of their songs, and they get it cut on a 7-inch disc. Another thing I really want to do with that is kind of like team up with a couple local artists and do these kind of like made to order record pop-ups where, you know, the idea is that the two artists kind of tag team on releasing a single, and we do a double-sided single, 7-inch, and then I have everything ready at the pop-up, and it's kind of like promoted like, hey, if you want this record, you got to go to this record store.
Yep.
And this day.
Yep.
And this time from this time. And you buy the record, it's made right in front of you, package it all there, and then give it to the customer. So having like two singles, the idea with the two different artists and having multiple people involved is like kind of building that community more where, you know, it's not only me promoting it, but it's two other artists promoting it and the record shop that we're at, you know, and we're kind of like collaborating together on this really cool thing where fans can come and buy this record, because going to a record shop is already an experience in itself. People love that experience of going to the record store, flipping through the records, finding the record. But when you take it and add that element to it, where they can go to this record shop for the experience of buying their friend's record, and they get to watch it get cut.
Yeah, they were there. They were there for it.
Yeah, on this 1950s machine. And then they get a really special piece of history, you know?
Yeah.
So those are like the kind of pop-up things that are going to be happening in the next few months. I also, like I said, doing the longer in-studio sessions, where right now we're kind of in this trial period of like kind of building some traction with it. And we're hoping to run the first session with that artist, that record is of Jeremy Fama, and have him come in and play 2 20-minute sets, broadcast it, get it on 2 12-inch discs. And then whoever wants them. You know?
That's exciting.
So
there's really a lot of cool aspects to that, just outside of the like creating an entity at the end. That's a really cool project. Thank you so much for sharing about that.
I'm pretty excited about it. And I've kind of rebranded the record, because I used to just call it Fortune Ave Records. And then my friend David, who I mentioned that I've been working with for the last couple of years, he had the name Portland Sapphire Records. So now I'm calling it Fortune Ave Sapphire Records. So the studio is still Fortune Ave Studio, but the records are going to be, you know, Fortune Ave Sapphire Records. And I think it's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah, very much so. Definitely looking forward to all of that. For this next one, go and look straight at your camera. Tell everybody how they can find you.
You can find me on my website, www.fortuneavestudio.com. I'm easily available on Instagram at Fortune Ave Studio, and all my contact information is on there.
Oh yeah. And I have to say this, I mentioned it earlier, you may have one of the most comfortable websites I've ever seen.
Thank you.
In my entire life. Like, it's all there. The like font is a great size. It's got a great space. It's very informative. No nonsense.
I really appreciate you saying that, because I've poured so much time into making it really easy.
You nailed it. It is, like I said, probably one of the most comfortable websites I've ever seen.
And I have, at one point, I had a way where you could order records directly from the website. I've pulled that down because I'm reworking that, but it was almost like going to a pizza website and choosing your toppings sort of thing, because there's so many variables. These records are fully customizable. If you want to order records from me and do all your art, please do.
Yeah.
Because then I don't have to. You know, if you want to make all your own packaging, please do, because then I don't have to.
Yeah.
You know, so it's cool in that way that they're special. I can also make a fully packaged record for people, and that's mostly what I do.
Yeah.
But I have had artists come, just get the disc, and they make their own stickers. They make their own sleeves. So I'm hoping to add to the website that element again, where you can go and say, I want a 7-inch record. You click on the 7-inch record, and then it has all the drop-down menu options of like your jacket, your artwork, all of that. Also, once we start doing the live to record sessions, there's going to be a schedule calendar on there where you can book sessions for that in the future. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, very much looking forward to that. All right. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you'd like to put on while you're on here?
Yeah. So Jeremy Fama, check out his music. Great guy. Playing a lot. That's one of the records that we made. My video guy, 47 Knuckles Media, he's been helping me out a lot. He made the promo. That's the most recent reel on my Instagram page, you know. And look out for, since I just moved to Oregon City, look out for the first pop-up being at Oregon City Records. I was in there talking to them the other day about doing a pop-up there really soon. And then branching out from there.
Oh yeah, man, you got a lot of cool stuff coming up.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right, now with that being said, I've got one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
All right.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records. Yeah, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is
the final question.
I need to get the lights from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Oh yeah. Especially the little thing.
Yeah, a little button. But this is entirely up to your interpretation. But in all of music, what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? It's a bit of a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
Okay, and first, this came to my mind because we've talked about Portugal the Man a couple times. Their album, It's Complicated Being a Wizard, is so good. It's like really, really early. That'll be, that one, you know, hops into my rotation frequently, but it's pretty obscure and it's way different. And it's really cool. I won't say any spoilers, but that one's really cool.
Oh yeah. Well,
check it out.
Solid rec. Yeah. Thank you so much. All right. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed chatting with you, and you know, you get two audio engineers in a room, and it's going to be a long conversation.
Yep. Very much so. Very much so. And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Kyler.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap. This is not a podcast. This is a show. Keep jamming.